the normal monthly business meeting of the Devils Lake Water Improvement District. Today is August 9th, 2018. Let the record reflect that all board members are present. Do I hear a approval or a motion to accept the consent agenda?
Make a motion.
Second.
Chair, discussion.
Yes. I know last month, excuse me, we had a discussion about our financial statements and stuff and how we were going to do that. I trust that we've got that.
Yeah, I kind of wanted to make statement on that. What we've chose to do is lag the financials for 30 days so that we are assured that the financials are complete. So I'm satisfied with that, actually getting good, clean records. And I think most importantly was June was the last month of our fiscal year. And comment that I would like to make is on the revenue side. We actually did 105% of our budgeted revenue projection, which means we actually collected $22,329 more than what we had budgeted, which is always a good number. And it states that we did our due diligence also in our budget, having accurate numbers. And on the requirements for expenses, we did miss one thing, but me owning my own business, it's always tough to budget payroll taxes, and every business across the state and actually the district is seeing additional payroll taxes. But just wanted to make a comment about the budget committee and how good of a job that they did.
Well, I think the main thing that we were concerned about was the revenue side of things. It's getting the accurate information and from the county on our collected taxes. So that's been taken care of. Good. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Let us show that consent agenda is accepted. We did have a sign-up sheet for citizens present on agenda or non-agenda items. We had no one sign up, but in case you missed the sign-up, is there any audience members that would like to comment prior to our meeting? Okay. We will then move forward. Unfinished business. We'll have our committee briefings. First of all, our sewer committee. I think we have a sewer committee member here. Do we have any sewer committee report at this time?
I can tell you that we are waiting for the Civil West report to come back before we meet again. So
Okay.
we canceled today's meeting.
And I think
Postponed it.
that won't be until October then. Is that correct?
I thought that it was supposed to be back before then, unless I missed an update.
The sewer committee, the last email I believe said they were postponing it until we receive the portion of the Civil West plan, which we just received yesterday, and we're reviewing that right now. So I think they tabled this meeting for right now.
No, that's what I said, but I Kent said that the Civil West thing wasn't coming till October, and I said I thought we were supposed to receive it before then.
We did, but the final is projected for October. We have to look at it first, give
Gotcha.
comment.
Okay.
Yeah.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Okay. Special projects and events committee.
Yeah, what I have is Josh and I met with Tom Wood Monday morning to come up with a full aeration plan regarding the Airstream unit.
Oh, cool.
And along with that, an update on the contract with John Tucci and details that go along with it. And we're going to present that in the September meeting so that everybody has a clear view of what the goal is for the Airstream and the rest of the aeration system in conjunction to working on the water. That's it.
Okay, great. Thank you. Save Our Shorelines. I think we have our chairman from that, Mary Ellen.
All right. The floating garden is a year old, and there's a paper out now. Has it been posted anywhere yet?
I can get it up on the website if you want, for sure.
And it'll be on the website, the instructions for how to build a floating garden. This is what it looked like at the beginning. This is what it looked like at the end, right there. And it's very, very busy little garden, but doesn't take a lot of time because you don't fertilize it, you don't water it, you just kind of weed it once in a while. The list of plants is in here, the list of supplies that you need is in here. This is what the idea came from, the Netherlands, Amsterdam, yes.
Did you give copies of that to the board last month?
I sent
She
them
sent an
last week.
email out.
Yeah,
All right,
yeah.
thanks. I thought I'd seen them.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, and you can print it off. The ingredients or the supplies are here, and then the list of plants that we tried, but I think you could try just about anything
Yeah.
that is in this book and has the water-loving symbol on it. It's worth trying because they seem to be thriving. Oregano is thriving in there. Rosemary. And all the little bulrushes and sedges and rushes, hairgrass, bulrush, sedge, flags, Swiss chard, ferns. Ferns are iffy, but they're going. And then I put, on the corners, I put the white lilies that lay flat instead of building up like those yellow ones in front of our houses. So the white ones are there, and they're doing well. They're coming over the edge, and but not being invasive. They're staying right there in the thing. Larry drew up a diagram of how to cut the PVC pipe, and the dimensions and how many pieces you need of that. And then there are 13, I don't know how I ended up with 13, but 13 instructions on how to build your own floating garden. If you're in an area where waves come in, I would put bumpers in around the edge, but it's very hardy. It seems to, it lets our boat go by. It lets the our aeration stream just sweep right under it, sweep it over. It's happy just about anywhere. Lots of pictures of how to stuff it with water bottles and glue it. So, it's a do-it-yourself kind of thing.
That's great that you put that together.
So
A lot of help from my
So I
friends.
guess I'm assuming that you would you think this is a viable option for
I do.
planting in the water.
I do. If you don't have a shoreline, and even, we have a little bit of a shoreline, but then we have a big, long dock in front, and it just sits right there. It provides greenery, as the picture from the Netherlands shows. They put it all along their channels. They put these floating gardens and link them together. And I think they're doing vegetables in it. I haven't tried vegetables yet, but I thought I'd just see what grows of what we have from your property. And then Jack Strayer brought some reeds that are doing well on the side.
I wonder, Mary, I know that this last year you kind of sequestered that back in your boat slip. I wonder if we, try to keep at least one or develop one or have one that's out all year round,
Yeah.
so that we can
See how it
see what
weathers.
happens.
And you might have to replace things once in a while. Some of them don't weather, they're really cold, but I didn't have any problems with most of them, but there were ones from our planting project that I wanted to put in there, and they're all doing well in there.
Very good.
So it's kind of fun. It's fun to watch, and the kayakers that come down by us, they always stop and ask questions and want to know what that's about, so it's kind of fun.
Well, great
Thank you.
project. Thanks, Mary. I'll supplement a little bit for the SOS committee. I was in contact with one of our local homeowners that I think next year they'll have had their place for 50 years.
Oh, wow.
And so they are interested in a SOS program. However, that may evolve or change over the course of the next year if it does. But they're interested in doing a planting in probably March or April. That's probably an optimal time for doing that because we take advantage of the water, and especially for absentee owners that aren't here that can't supply water on a regular basis, that will help with those plants' survivability. I know that the planting we did on our property 2 years ago, I'm still supplementing some watering, and I think it needs that at least for a couple of years. And you don't see the results. I was looking back on pictures, and should share those with the board and the website and put them on our website. But you know, it takes a couple of years for you to fully see the changes that can take place. It's not something that happens in one growing season. It's a commitment. So, but I think it's a viable commitment, and we'd like to see if we can get more people, more homeowners involved, and shoot for a mass change in our shoreline next spring. So that's my goal, at least. Other than that, let's see, projects and operations, I guess that's next on our agenda. Josh, do you want to update us on those things?
Certainly. We've had a lot of good things happening lately. First updates here on the conservation aeration project. The power connections are currently being engineered by Pacific Power. We've met out there on site with Josh Lee, the engineer. Doesn't seem like there's going to be any issues. No one foresees any major problems with the Water Avenue boat ramp location, so that's great news. We're awaiting their final drawings on that. Once we get those final drawings, we're going to get those to Justin with green light, who's our electrician, and he's going to put the tap in the meter and get everything all wired up for us. So very exciting there. Our installation system our aeration system contractor, John Tucci with Lake Savers, has been notified and sent his first of 3 installments. The equipment's been ordered and is being fabricated right now to be on a truck and on its way out here with him and his crews to install it in late September, early October. But that is it right there. We're still submitting a couple of minor pieces of paperwork to DSL and some of the agencies they want just to close out the final applications, but everybody is approved and very excited about this going in. So we did just have a newspaper article, I think, in the News Guard last week that was pretty good as well. So
Right.
Also, our video monitoring project down at Vivian's, we have the infrastructure in for that, the Cat 5, the power and everything ran. I met with Jim Dewey, Dewey's Designs, this last week. We found the cameras, we picked out the equipment that we want, and we're going to get together in the weatherproof boxes. We are anticipating getting those in within 30 days, getting them all fabricated and installed, so it shouldn't take more than a day or two to install them. A lot of that time is going to go towards getting the equipment all set up and talking to each other. Also looking at a weather station to get tied into the website as well, so we're very excited about that. We have had very successful applications on our last couple of grants for our sewer planning. We received a $5,000 grant award from the Sletch Tribal Charitable Contribution Fund. They're once again supporting our efforts to preserve Devil's Lake, so a very, very big thank you to them for continuing to help us with those projects. And also just yesterday, we received a $2,500 donation from the BB camp towards that same plan. So we would definitely want to give them a very, very big thank you as well for helping support us with this project. So. And a side note, I didn't get it under projects and operations, but we have started conversations with Lincoln City on some options for dealing with the sand at the D River, to bring them on board to start a better dialogue and maybe get some more options, because I think that's going to be a cooperative effort between us and any other organizations we can get involved to be able to make that an option, because we definitely see that we're having some issues after the last set of king tides and big storms we had last year. So we are in talks about what we can come up with to move that along or get the water flowing.
Does the permit that the city has on the west side, is it any different than the permit that we would need on the east side?
It's very different. The one on the west side is an emergency dredging permit, which basically is just a super limited amount and section that you can take it out under very specific circumstances, like after a large storm event or something like that. And what we need on the other side of the bridge would be an actual removal fill permit, which there are very, especially large ones, they're very apprehensive to approve right now. We've talked with the Corps about that a couple of times. It's a lengthy process. There are no guarantees, and we have a couple of considerations in that area as well, because we have lamprey that get in the mud, and I think they have like a larval stage down there too. Those are species of concern to the Siletz tribe, so we want to be very careful and respectful and find out what's involved with that. But you kind of see what I'm talking about. There are a couple of other things that we have to worry about not being an emergency permit. Now, one thing we have asked about that we're going to approach the Corps about is to see if we can maybe extend that emergency permit,
Right,
and if they'll let us call that an emergency area as well, since it truly is with the amount of sand that comes in there. I mean, the sand that's deposited in these big storms and king tides doesn't stop at the bridge.
Right.
We're getting tons and tons and
That's what
tons.
I'm saying, is that if we could just extend that same permit and do the same thing that we do on the west side, you wouldn't have to have these huge removals if we could do it when it comes in.
That is definitely one of our options that we're trying to see if will work, and if they'll let us do that, we will certainly go that route, because that's really what fits the problem.
Well, I think it's event-specific event. So if you have an event, which we did have, I believe that we need clarification on the permit. How far can we go to alleviate the emergency? And it does extend beyond that. Makes no sense to clear out the D River on the west side of Highway 101 and still have the lake plugged on the east side. So,
Well, and we used to do the east side, just like
Right.
we did the west side, and I don't know when that stopped.
I think it was a few years ago when they
Well, I mean, it's been a
reapplied.
lot of years ago.
Oh, was
So,
it?
I mean, that sand that's in there is, builds up every single winter for probably I'm going to say 10 or 12
20.
years. 20?
Since the last time Ocean Lake Sand and Gravel dredged.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay, well.
Makes me feel really old.
Well, and I think the logic of it is just like Steve was saying, that it's event specific. When these events happen, the buildup of material is not coming from the lake itself and the
Right.
outflow of the lake. It's really coming from the ocean. And so, the logic of that is where I think, is a good starting point.
I mean, we're in a bit of a pickle now because we haven't done it for 20 years, but had we kept up on the emergency event part of it year after year, we wouldn't be where we are today.
Yeah, correct, and that's really what we want, because like you're saying, a single dredging project is just going to be more expensive the more it gets impacted, and it's going to constantly happen. It's a fact of life of that area on the
And
ocean.
when we went to the pre-permit meeting where, all of the agencies were together, we talked about that, of, this one time, yes, we want to remove a lot of stuff, but we want it so that when an event happens and a storm surge comes in, we can go in right away and just remove a little bit of the stuff and get things flowing again. And so, and they seemed amicable to that idea at the time, but it sounds like our original permit wasn't big enough. Or
No, like I said, it's really this very small pie slice of material that even tapers off towards the ocean on the map. So it's very limited in scope currently.
Yeah, my feelings is that it's not a dredging issue. It's removal of tidal sand that's accumulated on the east side of the dam. And it's, like Kent said, it's nothing that the lake has done, but it's going to become an emergency situation if we do nothing, because the lake will cease to
drain.
exhaust out into the ocean. So that's just going to create more inundated wetlands, and the water's going to have to come up higher to make an effect on draining. So in my view, it's an emergency right now. So just because it's on the east side of the dam is insignificant. It's tidal influence sand, and should it be there? What's our water quality issues, or is it a
Well, and
public
with E.
safety
coli,
issue?
too.
Well, and I believe that Josh and Tom are making this a high priority in their approach to things, and working with the city is a great way to do that, because they have a vested interest in developing that property down there too. Josh, I was going to ask you, I was in the office today and you weren't there, and Tom was saying you were doing a tour of the lake. can you fill us in on that?
Oh, sure.
Would you like to?
Yeah, some of the folks from the VCB approached me a couple weeks ago and actually just asked again if I could do it, and wanted me to just drive them around the lake and show them the areas and tell them about everything that's going on in our projects and works. And that was actually one of the things we discussed when we went down to near Vivian's and talked about the sand and everything that's going on down there, because of course Hofstadter Park, where the city is looking to maybe develop that area, get some more business and some more visibility, which will be great for Lincoln City and the lake. So that conversation has started, so we're very happy to see that and see some interest on their side. So, and it was
What organization are you talking about? DCB?
VCB.
Visitor City Convention Bureau.
Yeah.
So who was on your tour with you? Can you?
Had Scott, Jen, and Eric Johnson, and it was one of their gentlemen, and his name escapes me. Terrible with names. Sorry.
All those fit in the district boat? All those?
No,
people?
they
I was gonna say.
they asked, and I offered. I was like, well, depending on how many people, we might have to go 2 and 2. But they actually rented a pontoon boat from Noel up at Blue Heron, so we just drove them out in that. So it was a great morning. It was beautiful out on the lake, very calm, a little foggy, but we did get some great views while we were out there.
Great.
Great. Thanks, Josh.
Sure.
The other thing I was going to ask about was, can you give us a little update on lake level and water quality, just as a quick note?
No problem at all. Our water quality has been outstanding. The results just went up today. Again, everything was green. We've had no issues with E. coli for several weeks now, I believe. So we've had a great summer in terms of that already. Visibility has been outstanding in many areas. At Sandpoint today, when I was out with the folks from the city, we had 4 or 5 feet straight to the bottom that was crystal clear off of the beach there. So that was very encouraging to see. Dissolved oxygen has definitely bottomed out and gotten very low on the bottom of the lake, which is one of the main reasons we're putting in the large aeration system. So we're very consistent with that. The lake level has been very, very low the past couple of weeks. I believe we're down under 9.1 already. So we are way below any impoundment regime or schedule at this moment. So we're impounding everything we can. The boards are in. The fish passage is open. The water is on the other side of the sand. It's not even up to the dam, so we're extremely low right now in our water. So we're hoping for some rain, and I saw a little bit in the forecast this week. So
Historically, we're down below 9 feet at the end of summer, and regardless,
Right.
what the sand is doing. So if you just look at the history, you could even 10 years since we've been monitoring the lake elevation, and typically in September it's below 9 feet. As far as 8.7. So
Right, and I was going to say that it seems like even though I think at my house I've kept track of water for the rain for the year, and we've had just over 74 inches. We had 0 rain last month, 0. The month before we had one weekend in June that had 2 3/4 inches of rain. In May we had 0.13 of an inch of rain. And so we've had about 74 inches of rainfall since October 1st of last year. And I was thinking that, in previous years, even though we've had lack of rain and stuff, that the water quality, even the algae growth, has been much less this year than we would normally expect. Oftentimes you see wakeboarders and water skiers and stuff, and there's just a big green wake behind them, and you don't see that yet. And so we're only 3 more weeks till Labor Day weekend, and it's doing it. Whatever nature's doing is it's working out right now. And then what we can do, or what we're trying to do in the near future, will only enhance that.
Well, let me add to that. It's the only noticeable difference that I personally know of is that we're moving 24 million gallons of water every day.
Yeah.
So whether it's significant or not, it's definitely different than it was last year.
Right.
So
Definitely is. Very good.
anyway,
Right. Are there any? It seems like we're going really fast. It's a. Uh-huh.
Last month we talked pretty extensively about Thompson Creek and coming up with some ideas to move up there. Were you able to contact anybody at DEQ or?
We have contacted David Waltz at DEQ. Matter of fact, I spoke with him today and left him another message. We've been playing phone tag a little bit. They're still involved with it. They don't have the regulatory authority to test without warrants and things either, so they're kind of in the same boat. But we are still continuing to talk with them. They are aware of that problem.
Did they have ideas for a private citizen group of testing or?
They haven't contacted back at me yet.
Okay.
And I know for a fact that our contact, David, has been out in the watershed because the message he left me today said, I've been out in the watershed. So I know he's been on project.
If a private citizen were to take samples and document where they got their samples, would it do any good if those went to the DEQ, or would they not be able to use those to do anything anyhow? I guess that's my biggest question, is that if we had the data, or not we, but private citizen A got the data and took it to DEQ and said, I took these samples, I took it at this address or at this, location, would DEQ take that as enough evidence to do something about it, or would they be able to use that?
That's really a question for them, and
Well,
I
will
will
you ask
ask
that
them.
question?
Yeah, absolutely. It's just one of those really big, difficult issues to tackle, and it is on people's radar. And I think it's just been on there for a while because there hasn't been a great solution so far. But they have been continually monitoring that waterway for 14 years at this point. So it's.
Josh, another question, kind of, it was discussed last meeting also. So, the fish, when we were talking about the fish, and Chair Norris had asked if we could get a little bit better of a clarification on if we report an incident, how do we know that they got it and what's their process? We were talking specifically about the organ fish and wildlife. What I think we were trying to get was that if we have somebody in the watershed that's concerned about a specific situation, and it could be E. coli or whatever, and we give that information to an agency, what do they do with it? And I think that this board has a responsibility to find out what they did to it, with it, because it does affect our water. And so I don't know if you're understanding or if I'm clarifying it well enough, but I think as we have members bring forth something, I think that some of these departments need to give us some answers. And I don't know if you're asking that of them, or if you're asking it, Tom is asking it of them, but it's the difference between just saying we'll look into it, which I'm not saying that you are, but I think this board wants to end up knowing what they do with the information, and if we can aid them in any way. We've seen issues with Thompson Creek year over year, and we would really like to have the right person say, something's going to be done about it, because it does affect our water. And if it takes one of the board members to get involved, I would love to do it. I'm one of those people that are about accountability, and I don't think it's wrong to hold some of these agencies accountable. So if we could continue to work on things like that, because it's important for the integrity of this board too, to know if we're getting delivered information, that we can do something with it. I think it's a vital, important part about what we do.
Well, I think always a frustration of members on the board has been that we don't have any enforcement capability.
Mhm.
We can find out information, but we have no enforcement capability whatsoever. And so if that's the case, then what can we do, I guess, is what you're asking.
Well, and I think publicly, it's not just about us admitting that we can't enforce it.
Right.
I think there's a difference between enforcing and influencing decisions. And I think when you have a board and, the homeowners association and people that live in the boundaries that are asking us questions, I think we just need to try to take it to the next step. And if we can't get the answers, I'd be the first one to say, hey, just couldn't get it. But I have a hard time accepting no sometimes from government because we have the law in the books and we have the regulatory agencies, and I don't think it's too much to ask them to do their job and communicate to the public.
And I think the thing that we're doing is just like the aeration program, and the things we're trying to do are the things we're capable of. That those are under our control. But you're asking, in my estimation, you're asking, well, okay, who do we need to contact, or who do we need to get this information to in order for an action to take place?
And sometimes it's a matter of numbers, and I think if we really believe in it and we're going to be part of those numbers because it affects our end result of water quality, that's the next step maybe.
Very good.
Josh?
Go ahead.
A little avenue for you, Josh, to research, if you would, please, and that would be the natural absorbent for E. coli, whether it be plant or a synthetic filter, so that we could filter this water coming out of Thompson Creek and see if we can make an impact or a difference in the water quality with our actions.
Sure.
So that if we do find a viable solution or an absorbent fabric or an organic absorbent, that we put that into effect ASAP.
Sure.
So we can start to monitor that technique and see if it's successful or if it's not. That way we will know as a board if something we can do will impact the water quality, then it's a win-win.
Yeah.
We can wait around for people to call back, or we can take action.
Right, and
And-
that's something we can influence.
And I don't want you to feel that our hands are tied on this as well. We are in talks with other organizations, one in particular, Ducks Unlimited, who has been very interested in helping us. I just spoke with Greg Green today and gave him an update on what we're working on. There's everything, options from purchasing that land near Thompson Creek to be able to turn that into a bioswale or some kind of treatment area like Bill's talking about, which is definitely one of the bigger options. It's certainly a longer term, farther reaching goal, but definitely not out of our wheelhouse. And that's where these conversations hopefully are going to lead us, are going to be to a bigger, more permanent solution for Thompson, even if it's within our lake itself.
Sure.
Right.
Well, I noticed that Thompson's been a chronic issue for a long time, and there was, I believe, in the early 2000s, a dredging permit issued for the east end of Thompson Creek, and they removed 50,000 yards of muck. But development on the other side of the road has pretty much replaced the 50,000 yards to where now it's a pretty good crop of pasture grass, and the canals being overwhelmed with sediment. And if we could step on the other side and deal with that issue, and there again, it's us taking action and promoting that solution rather than, I hate to say it, but we can wait forever for nothing, or we can discover a technique and put it to use. So that's it.
One other thing, Tina.
Yes, sir.
So you were involved in the preliminary permitting of removal of the sand and the conversation on that.
Yes.
Could you help with the language and kind of go back and determine what event means versus emergency? And why does it really extend only to one side of Highway 101?
Yeah, I think, for me.
Just to clarify it, I guess.
Yeah, well, and I think that it would help me if I don't remember, I've read the permit that the city has for the west side.
Right.
And in that pre-application meeting, we brought that up several times, and the agency seemed to be very, like, oh, yeah, we get it, and because that was one of the things is, I was very specific, because like, I'm not looking for a one shot and never do this again. I want this to be, as the sand comes in, we can take it back out, and not sit there, so that species do become accustomed to that as their home, and so on and so forth. And they were very amicable to that idea, and they gave us a list of the things to do, and we jumped through most of those hoops. And then one of the things that came up later, I think even after you were on board, is the Pacific lamprey issue.
And that may not be, a huge
Right.
issue. We just haven't had, the option to put a project together to even really
Right.
dig in and see if that's going to be
So
an issue.
Well, I know
I know that you've worked with state agencies before, but I have to tell you, and I should probably keep my mouth shut, but sitting in those meetings and hearing some of the asinine things that people say, like, well, how do we know that the sand is not deciduous to that area? We need to do some core sampling. Like, come on. And
Well, that was done.
It was, and
I
it's
know,
in our,
but
you can spread
I'm
it on the
just saying,
beach.
it's like that stupid stuff that, they sit in a room in a building in Portland and, have no idea. Obviously we took them lots of great pictures and stuff, and as you went around the table, there was very little common sense used. And so that's what we're battling is, we can say all day long of, oh, this is an emergency because of an event, and, try to,
even
and I am
Lila.
happy to help clarify that, and I am happy to look at the west side permit and try to match the east side language so that it's, synonymous. When we go in with an excavator, we start where we need to on the east end and we finish where we need to on the west end. That totally makes sense.
I'm pretty sure that the permit says to eliminate the event. Now, in this last event that storm surge brought that sand, talking to Lila, Public Works, they knew they were pulling out of there a lot more sand than the permit allowed, but it was taking care of the event to open up. You can't just pull if the permit says, 100 yards and
And the west side
2,000
permit
has
does not
shut the beach
specify,
off.
right.
It doesn't
There's
work
no
that.
numbers in the west side permit.
Yeah, so I think
Like-
if we go to them, and what I'm kind of trying to direct this is how much control can we use to control or eliminate an event? So the objective would be not to clog Devil's Lake. So if Devil's Lake is clogged, that's the event, and we can pull out or dredge just to get Devil's Lake flowing again. It's not that we're going to dredge the whole river, and that's never been our intent with anything.
Well,
it's getting the flow
I
going.
kind of disagree. I think that on a one-time basis, we should dredge the east side and get it back to, I took swimming lessons there.
Right.
And there was 6 or 8 lanes of deep water. There was a boat manufacturer there. I think that if we're going to do it, and we can afford it, we should get it back one time the way that we want it, and then have, whether
Right.
it's a second permit or.
Well, I'm not saying we shouldn't do that, but I think as a path
Sure.
to get there
the
would
first
be,
thing that when
it was an event that created
Right.
it.
And that's the frustration is that, for the last, I can't believe it's 20 years, but we've just ignored it, and now the last 2 or 3 years, we've really had an issue. But I think that it's, it's just a matter of playing, I don't need to tell you. You got it. But I will tell you one thing that I did learn in that meeting, and if anybody has ever sat in a meeting with ODOT and talked about Highway 101 or Highway 18, the reason they don't fix it is because of all the things that they would have to do, regulations. But if it's done on an emergency basis, guess what? They just go fix it.
Right.
And all of the environmental studies and the impact this and impact that are out the window. And I think that may be a similar situation with the west side dredging. And so if we could get in that same boat, for no pun intended, that would be ideal.
We'd love to get in a boat in the D River.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't want to just make it the biggest sand volleyball court ever?
No.
Okay.
Maybe at Hostetler Park. That's
Yeah,
a great
that'd be a
idea.
good one.
And with the experience we had this last winter, it doesn't take very long.
Well, not when it's as full as it is now.
No.
It will take a very small storm surge to clog the lake up.
No,
this
but
way.
I'm saying that when they took care of the event this winter, they were done in a few hours.
Oh, yeah.
With moving.
They were done before we got down there 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. they were
And
quick.
I'll tell you that, it used to take a big storm event to clog that river up. And it won't now,
No.
especially on the east side.
Right.
Right.
No. Yep. I believe, and I know I've talked this over with Josh and Tom, saying that this is a high priority for
Yeah.
the board, and I know that
We can get all excited about it now that the aeration project's on.
Yeah. Very good. Okay. Are there any other non-agenda items from the board?
The last thing I would say about DEQ, and back on my ripping on state agencies, but they are a squeaky wheel gets the grease agency. And, water may be a little bit different. I deal with land and air quality, and it is all complaint driven, everything.
Well,
And we did meet with some residents from Thompson Creek and discussed and updated that. We also met with Mark Christie of the DLNA and updated him. And I think we may approach it in just such a fashion like you're talking about, Tina. Get some more people and other community organizations interested that are aware of this problem, are also as concerned as we are about it. And maybe we'll have a louder voice to be able to at least get an answer or some accountability.
Good.
Great.
yeah, and I don't know if anybody's been on East Devils Lake Road in the last week, but they have, there was historically, after they did the repair work, they would still have water standing. And the reason I equated it to standing was that there was soil up
Have a
above
bathtub.
the actual pavement itself. And this week they've went through and they've taken all of that out and then they paved it on both with asphalt. So we'll see if that takes care of any of the.
It's going to make
What a
the
waste
pile
of money.
higher the next
No,
season.
actually, they took it off.
Oh, no, they did. I was in county, I've been in lots of county meetings this week, and Steve, oh, for crying out loud, I can't think. Anyhow, the head of public works for the county, I was like, what on earth are you doing? And he's like, well, that shoulder gets soft and it floods and da-da-da. I was like, but have you noticed how the road is like about to crack in half right there? And they're not going to touch that for 2 years. So they spent all that money doing the shoulders when we're not going to be able to drive down the road.
Well, we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what. My thought all along was I was going to take a shovel out there and just dig so that the water would drain off into the
Where it's
lake.
supposed to, yeah,
and-
and it-
yeah, where it's supposed to be,
wetlands there.
because the
A contractor did that,
well, the
and they
shoulder
got
was
in
too high.
big trouble.
The shoulder was too high, and all it needed was some kind of a drain system, and it appears that it's at least at highway height, I think, or below that, so maybe this will work, I don't know.
The road is sinking.
Yeah.
So now we're going to have shoulders up above the road again, I
So
think.
let's hope not.
It's going to be a paved shoulder, though.
Yes.
Yeah, it's going to be paved.
Very good, yeah. Any other non-agenda items from the board? Additional comments from citizens that are present? Would anyone like to speak? You've had your chance. No,
You're
I'm
aboard.
just kidding.
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
Sorry, we closed that portion of the agenda.
Do we have, are there actually any citizens who would like to speak? Okay. Board comments, announcements. Bill, this is your time now.
Thank you. I just wanted to say a big thanks to Larry and Mary Ellen for their commitment to try and share their newfound garden with everybody, and would hope that at least one person would jump on board and put their tools together and make one, so that the more the merrier, and the more in the water, the better the water quality. So I'm
I would
on
love
board.
to pay somebody to build me one.
Okay.
Well, if I remember right,
I
it-
want some.
I have one too, but I'd like somebody to build it.
Yeah. Well, the cost of materials, if I remember right, was around $150
$200 or $150.
$200. And so, Larry, if you can ever get Mary Ellen's list done, we'll hire you here to build some other ones.
Very good.
Got grandkids that need a job?
Thank you.
All right.
Where's our intern?
Any other comments from the board? Hey, thank you all for coming tonight. I know you have valuable time, and we have a lot of good things happening. It's going to happen here in the next 60 days, so a lot of exciting things happening on the lake. And in my view this summer, one of the things I'd like to make one last thing before I close the meeting is that it's really exciting as a resident to see all the activity, not only in the water, but on the shoreline. We have major people either moving to the lake or putting money into their homes, and we have not seen that in recent years. And if you look around the lake, you'll see many, many building projects or remodeling projects, and it's exciting.
Landscaping projects.
It's neat to see that people are willing to say, hey, Devil's Lake is a place I want to live, spend time, and put my money and efforts into. And if you look around the lake, it is happening. So if you are a person at home and haven't been to the lake lately, come out, see what's taking place. It's a neat, and it's going to happen in the water in the next 60 days too.
Well, and if anybody hasn't talked to Noel at the marina, he said he cannot remember a year that he's ever been this busy. And so anytime you can get businesses saying that, we know we've done our job.
Yes, very good. Thank you all for coming tonight.